Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to Live from the Eagle's Nest at the National Conservation Training Center. We're looking at a live view of a large bald eagle's nest here at the National Conservation Training Center. We're located near Shepherdstown, West Virginia in the beautiful eastern panhandle of West Virginia, very close to the Potomac River. In the background, you see the buildings of the National Conservation Training Center. This is the home of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and our main training facility for the entire country. We have people from all over the United States and around the world come here for classes each week, in and out throughout the year. We've got a beautiful over 500-acre campus, and about 20 years ago, in 2003 to be exact, a pair of bald eagles built a nest here. And so we've been watching them ever since, and we really enjoy it. And people from all over the world have joined in to watch these amazing eagles raise their young year after year. So we want to say welcome and hello and welcome to all of our old friends that have been with us for a long time and all of our new viewers too here today. I'm Randy Robinson, Outreach Coordinator here at the NCTC, as we call it for short, National Conservation Training Center. And we'll take you today on a little tour of sort of a little bit of behind the scenes, things that you don't normally see on the Eagle Cam, get you a little bit familiar with some of the terrain and the landscape here at NCTC, but also a little bit about the nest history. We'll catch up on last season just a bit and then talk about the season coming up and help you understand, especially if you're a new person, all of the things that go on during the entire cycle of the year. It really goes year-round, but we're in prime time now here in the nesting season. So I want to say welcome to all. This is all made possible by the Friends of the National Conservation Training Center and the Outdoor Channel, who does all of the streaming. And of course, our production crew at NCTC here and all of our staff and everybody that's online and in the chat room on the live Eagle Cam chat. We've got a great group of people, Bald Eagles 101 folks and others who keep an eye on the questions, and you can put questions in there and get them answered. I'll answer your questions here today too. You can put those into the live stream chat room, or we're also going out on YouTube Live. So either way, we'll answer as many questions as we can. Also wanted to say a special hello to Ms. French and her third grade class at Glenwood Elementary down in the southern part of the state. I'll be talking with them next week, and all of the other teachers and students who might be joining with us today. We're glad to have you here. Thanks for coming. And so a little bit of a recap from last year. As the viewers know, we had 2 eggs, but only one of them hatched last year. And the young one that grew up and fledged, left the nest, was named Jefferson by our local elementary school. So we're in Jefferson County, so that was a great name. Jefferson took off about mid-June, and we hope he's doing well. We saw him a few times later in the summer, July and August, but he's off on his own now, as all young eagles do. So it's been quite a busy season if you weren't around in the fall. Sad to say, we lost our resident male who had been with us since 2011. People knew him as Smitty. Well, the last time we saw him was around September in the fall, and we believe he might have been in a territorial fight. That happens a lot. We've seen it before with both male and female. At any rate, we hope Smitty is well, but we can't say. We just don't know what happened to Smitty. Of course, we looked around here for him, but we have a new male. He came in after Smitty, and folks named him Scout. So Scout is easy to identify, easier than Smitty was, because he's a young bird. He's got 3 black dots on the top of his head, and we'll take a look at those in a little bit. But now, and just recently, that would be February 27th, the first egg was hatched, and then again on March 1st and March 4th. So we've got 3 eggs this year. And I believe that's the female that we're looking at now. Bella is what folks know her by, and she's sitting on 3 eggs. She might get up and turn those eggs during the time that we're with you. So if that happens, our folks in the control room, Rob and Brett, will switch back to that, and we'll talk about what's going on. So let me say hello and welcome to some folks in the chat room. Pam from Maryland, Harding, Maryland. Deb from all the way up in Alberta, Canada. Deb's been with us for a long time, very active in the chat room, answering questions, posting photos and videos. In fact, we've got a couple of Deb's videos coming up. Rob, if you cue that first video up, we'll take a look at that in just a little bit. We've got Nicole from all the way out in Washington State. Let's see. We've got Kim from Alaska. Awesome. Thanks for joining us from all the way up there in the great Northwest. And Gail from Dallas, Texas. Welcome back, Gail. You were with us quite a bit last year. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us. So we'll get into, for starters, a little bit of video here. Let's take a look at, if you want to play this one, Rob, this was from March 5th, and this is from Deb. So this is the female, Bella, getting off her eggs. Now there's your view of the eggs, 3 eggs there. So the male and female switch, they trade places. One gets tired, the other one will come in. But look at the size of her talons, her feet there, big, big feet. She is a larger bird than the male, and that's typical. Females are usually larger than the males by a couple of pounds and maybe 6 inches of wingspan. So here comes the new male in. As I mentioned, he's known to our viewers as Scout. If you see folks talking about Scout, they mean the male. And when you get a chance, look at the back of his head. Now, this is very likely his first time with eggs, and his first mating season, that is to say. So those black feathers indicate to us he's between 4 and 6 years old. Let's just say 5 years old for the ease of talking here. And those black feathers are remnants of the dark feathers he had. So bald eagles, and you can see him turning the eggs there with his beak, and look how he's clumping up his talons. And he's going to pull a little bit of grass in here. It was a wet day. That little bit of a wiggle that you see him doing, he's getting his brood patch, that is bare skin, right up against the eggs to keep maximum warmth on the eggs for incubation. So he's looking around. He's learning fast, doing a good job for a new dad, so to speak, here at the nest. Now, the first few days were a little tricky. We could go, well, let's save that second video for a little bit. We'll take a look, and we'll hear some vocalizations. Eagles make all kind of interesting sounds. We'll hold that one off for a little bit, Rob. And let me take a couple questions here before we get into some slides. Let's see, 3-7. Oh, we're live now. Okay, I'm a little confused here. So, yeah, you just got a chance to see the eggs. And so there's the female, Bella, wiggling around. Again, when they do that, both male and female have a bare spot. It's caused by hormonal change. So their feathers drop off when they're just in a one small spot called a brood patch. Other birds get brood patches too, chicken, duck, turkey, so on. So feathers are good insulators. So if they put feathers up against the eggs would be insulated from the body heat. So the purpose of the brood patch is so they can get their skin, which is very warm, right up against the eggs. And by the way, bald eagles are about have a body temperature of about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So several degrees, 6 degrees or more warmer than human beings. So they've got to keep those eggs warm for 35 to 38 days. That's the typical incubation period. So I'll get into a couple of questions here from Julia. These came into the chat room earlier. Julie asked, is it typical to see mating continue as we saw on the nest after Bella produced her first 2 eggs? And quite frequently, too. Yeah, it's not too uncommon, Julia. We've seen that before. In fact, in the video that we'll play here after a little bit, we're going to see that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that too. So not uncommon to see that. Again, it's a little bit of a hormonal thing. They could still have those hormones are running through their bloodstream. So we've seen this pair mating off and on for the last several months. I haven't seen read anything about mating since the third egg was laid. They did make an attempt at the other day. That's what I'll refer to when we see the next video. Why doesn't NCTC do banding of the eaglets? That's a good question. Well, we don't really have a need to, and it would cause undue disturbance is the short answer. A little bit longer answer is the Fish and Wildlife Service, state, federal agencies, other NGOs have been banding eagles for 30 to 50 years now. When they were on the endangered species list, as many of you know, they were on for nearly 30 years. They're off the endangered species list now. They're coming back in a big way, thanks to partnerships with state, federal agencies, NGOs. But we studied them extensively during that time. We banded many pairs. We introduced eagles to bring back populations from Alaska, from Canada, from states that had a lot of eagles, some Minnesota, Wisconsin. Eagles were brought into New York, Pennsylvania. And so we had our biologist, Craig Copey, just retired here. I'll mention Craig's name. Craig was very active doing that. We had Craig on as a guest last year. So for many, many years, we banded eagles to track them, to understand their behavior, to understand and know where they were going. But now we've got all that data, so it's mostly now it's not necessary. We've got eagle cams where we can watch them 24/7 like we are here. So good questions, Julia. And I will save a few more questions for a little bit later. Let's go ahead and get into some slides here. And we'll talk a little bit about, if you want to bring up my slides, Rob, we'll give folks a little bit of an overview of the Potomac River watershed. So we are in a big watershed here. The Potomac's all the way up. The watershed extends up into Pennsylvania, a large part of Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. Big watershed, and eagles are coming back in a big way. And of course, the Potomac goes into Chesapeake Bay and then the Atlantic. So eagles have come back. There are a lot of refuges over that area, in that area. Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge is one that have a lot of bald eagles. So these eagles are coming back population-wise in a big way. So when we're talking about the eagles here, a lot of the behavior that we talk about, you can extrapolate that to other nests and other eagles in other areas. Every eagle's individual, so to speak, but they do have some similarities. So again, we want to thank the Outdoor Channel for streaming this for many years, all of our dedicated eagle fans, and the friends of NCTC for helping us get this out to you today and bringing the Eagle Cam on for many years now, since 2006 actually. So we'll take off on a little view of the NCTC. Here's where we're located map-wise. You see the yellow star along the banks of the Potomac. We're about 70 miles upstream, upriver from Washington, D.C., in the beautiful panhandle of West Virginia, not far from the little university town of Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Here's the campus of NCTC. The buildings themselves have a fairly small footprint, but the overall campus is about 500 acres. Now, just off to the left of the screen, you can't see it, but that's the tree where the eagle's nest is. So the river is about a quarter mile from the eagle's nest. Maryland is on the right-hand side as we're looking at this photo, West Virginia on the left side of the river, and Dam 4 on the Potomac is up towards the top of the screen. So here's the view that the eagles would see as they fly over that's our auditorium down below, some of our instructional buildings. Beautiful fall shot. And the Potomac in the background. It's the home of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but since 2003, it's also been the home of this nesting pair of eagles. You can see our signs here, says closed to entry during the nesting season. That's the tree in the background to the right of the barn. And here's a better view of the tree. Before the leaves are on in the spring, you can see there's a bald eagle setting up at the top. The nest is quite large. It's 90 feet up in the tree. It's probably 7 feet across, 5 feet deep. And so here's a little different shot of the Potomac. This is a Google Earth shot. This is where the eagles like to fish. And so there's a fishing weir here. If you look, you see where it says Potomac River at the top of the screen. Just below that, on the right, there is a fishing weir. That font could be a little bit larger, Rob. Thank you. That fishing weir was made by Native Americans to catch, or sort of to trap fish, I should say. Funnel fish would be a better word. Funnel them into a narrow spot to where they could be caught in a net or a basket or speared. That's called a fishing weir. And so this is an area where the eagles do like to fish, right below these two islands on the Potomac. So here's some of the very earliest photos that we have of the nest. This was 2003 when the first pair, the original pair, Liberty and Bell, built this nest back then. There they are. You can see the nest was quite a bit smaller than back 20 plus years ago. And so it took a lot of work. You can imagine, stick by stick, they built that nest. We put a camera up there for the first time in 2005. Here's one of the earliest shots in November of 2005, looking directly down onto the nest. You can tell it's a different view from what we have today. But over the years, it's been a very productive nest. 2006, there were 3 eaglets in there. And again, a few months later, those tiny little eaglets are now full-size juvenile eaglets. We were very impressed at what great parents these eagles are, both the male and the female, taking care of the nest through the worst kind of weather. 2007 was a rough year. 2008, again, we had 3 eaglets, all hatched and all fledged. Takes a lot of fish to feed 3 eaglets, and Liberty and Bell were very good providers all of those years. Now the technology's greatly improved. We've got some great high-resolution photos. Nice one here by Deb Steck. And our newest cameras, we've got 2 of them, a wide angle and a tight shot, a close-up shot. You can rewind these cameras up to 12 hours. So if you missed something at, say, noon, you can go back almost to midnight and see that. So they will rewind 12 hours, and they both stream on YouTube as well. Nice high-resolution photos. I mentioned we have 2 shots, the wide angle in this picture, and then we've got a close-up. We've also got links and resources, so when you're on the live cam, if you scroll down to look for links and resources, Friends of NCTC, Deb has put up a nest history and frequently asked questions, very helpful. You'll see lots of photographs like the ones I'm using now to give you a good orientation. The daily journal of what's going on every day. And Paul Kolnick with Bald Eagles 101 has put in hatch dates there too. So lots of good information. I've got resources for teachers at the bottom on that same page as well. So you'll find a lot of information there. All of our viewers are great at answering questions. If you put a question in there, chances are it'll get answered pretty quickly into the chat room. We've even got an infrared light on the nest. Now, the eagles don't see this. Only the camera senses that. So we can see what's going on in the nest at night. Now, a lot of people wonder, how do we get up there to maintain these cameras? Every fall, we'd only do it in the fall when eagles are not on the nest. We have a friend, Kyle Friend is his name, and he has a tree service company, and that's his truck you see down on the ground, and Kyle's wearing a climbing harness, and he's roped to the end of that crane, which goes up 100 feet. And so Kyle gets up and installs a new camera for us if it needs it, or maintains the old one, the 2 cameras, cleans the lens, checks connections, whatever needs done. Kyle's the man that takes care of that for us. We're very happy that we have him to do it. And the camera, as we have it now, is about 95 feet, perfect for a bald eagle selfie, looking right into the lens of the camera there with NCTC in the background. Here you can get a good idea of the size of this nest. Like I mentioned, about 7 feet across, 5 feet deep, probably weighs close to a ton, and that's when it's dry. If it's full of snow or wet, it could weigh a lot more. So we'll stop right there. Let's take a look at a drone video. We've got some live video here. We'll get back to the slides in a little bit, but I want to show you a little bit of live, or not live video, but drone video. This is what the eagles would see as they fly out over the islands. The fishing weir that I showed you a little bit ago in that photo would be right in the area that we're looking at on the left side of the island. So here we're flying towards the Maryland side of the river, where the C&O Canal, the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, runs along the river, all the way from Washington, D.C. to Cumberland, Maryland. Now we're looking at the West Virginia side of the river. And so going downstream, if you were on a canoe or a kayak, going down the river towards Shepherdstown, that's the view that we're seeing right here. So this is the favorite fishing area of our bald eagle pair. And as the eggs hatch and the young ones start to eat fish, this is going to be their favorite fishing spot. And those eagles will be quite busy once those eggs hatch. Hopefully they'll hatch. We always say hopefully because there's no guarantees. This is a wild nest, and I do want to reiterate, these are wild birds. They come and go. We didn't plan for this nest to be here. They're totally on their own. So let me take a look and answer a few questions. I see some on the teleprompter here. What happened to Smitty? Okay, Smitty was the male eagle I mentioned at the beginning. He went missing. If you could scroll to the next question there, Rob. Unfortunately, Smitty was our male here from 2011 until this fall. He went missing. We assume probably that was territorial fights. You know, young eagles, they might be younger, healthier than older males, and he might have gotten chased off. That's happened with both males and females, not only at this nest, but many other nests. Washington, D.C., up in Pennsylvania. It's not uncommon. You've heard of survival of the fittest. When a young eagle, male or female, reaches mating age, that's about 5 years old, they get a white head and white tail feathers. They are looking for a nest. They're looking for a mate. They're looking for territory. And sometimes a ready-made nest like this one that's very visible is very appealing to a young male or female. And so the resident female, the original female, got chased off this nest in 2018. That was Belle. And our new female is Bella, named in honor of Belle. But you can understand this is not uncommon in the eagle world, and we just have to accept it. Sometimes, you know, it's hard to lose. We all were very fond of Smitty, but this is life in the wild. And, you know, the lifespan of an eagle in the wild might be 25 years. So, you know, young ones take over. That's the way it is. So Teddy's asking, how do you tell a male from a female? Well, the female is usually bigger. Sometimes it's a little hard, Teddy, to tell. But in this case, our new male is easy to tell because he's got 3 black spots. He's five-ish years of age. And so we can tell him from the 3 black spots. But, you know, he'll lose those black feathers eventually. But generally speaking, the female's bigger than the male if you see the 2 of them together. And she's got bigger hackles, bigger feet. She's just overall a bigger bird. Hello from Big Elm Elementary School. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. Question from Gail, thinking mostly about Smitty, but also generally, do single eagles, if they aren't mated, how do single eagles do if they aren't mated with another? Do single eagles do okay on their own? Okay, I see. Good question. Yeah, they can do all their own, and those birds might be called floaters. We often refer to them as floaters. That is a bird that doesn't have a mate or a nest, and they're on their own. Yeah, they can fend for themselves. They can hunt and fish on their own. A lot of times after the young birds leave the nest, the juveniles, when they fledge, they'll hang out together because if one young bird catches a fish, well, then other birds might get a meal. So there's some strength in numbers. And by the way, you might have seen photographs, usually from Alaska, where there might be 50 bald eagles in a tree. And you're thinking, well, Randy just told me they're very territorial and they defend their nest, and that's true during mating season. But when mating season's all done, and if there's plenty of food, those bald eagles might be hanging out in the same tree. They're well fed. There's lots of fish up there. They don't have to fight each other for food. But during nesting season and mating season, then they're very territorial. They're going to fight off other eagles. So that is how it works throughout the year. Okay, do we have any more questions in there right now?
Not as of right now.
Okay, well, let me go back into, let's play that video here while we're on that topic, Rob. We've got another video to show you from Deb Steck. It was from yesterday. Okay, so look at the black spots on the back of that's the male right there. If we could turn up the volume on this, Rob, we want to hear the sound on this one. Smitty's doing some vocalizing here. He's looking for the female. He's tired of sitting on the eggs, and we're interpreting bald eagle language, but after 20 years of watching them, we kind of know what he's saying in a sense. Here comes the female. Now they're going to trade places. Okay, so the male's on the right. He's got the black on the feathers on the top of his head. There you can see the 3 eggs. He wants to take off. He wants to stretch out and go down to the river and maybe find some fish or at least get a little break. And now the female is going to come in and take over. But watch what happens next, because Julia had the question. Now the female, now we can hear the vocalizing. The female's putting her head down. That's a submissive pose. And the male, they're thinking about mating. They're just thinking about it. But we've seen this before. And that chirping that we hear, we've heard that before. Like we said earlier, they've been mating off and on since November. Now the male's going to fly up on the post out of our view, and the female is going to go on. Look at her talons, how she curls her talons up into a ball. And now she's going to rotate the eggs, and the male just took off. You see his tail feathers take off there. She'll take those eggs with her beak and rotate them. They've got to be evenly heated. They'll do that about once an hour or so. Very gently take the beak and turn them. And another reason for doing that is so the membrane of the egg doesn't stick to the inside of the shell. If they stayed in one spot all the time, that egg shell might stick on the interior of the egg. So even heating and to keep that membrane nice and supple. There she's doing her little wiggle to get the breast, the brood patch right up against the egg. So it's always fun and interesting to watch that. And you can see that pretty much about once an hour on the average when you watch the live nest. So let's go back into the slides here, and we'll talk a little bit about bald eagle behavior and biology, give you a little bit more of an idea of what happens as these young ones grow. So we'll start in the fall here during mating season. Big female on the right, smaller male on the left. Again, the female's on the right. Part of their mating ritual, the bonding ritual, here the female's on the left, is to bring sticks in and to build the nest. They do this October, November, December. That's sort of the getting to know each other phase, and they build this nest up year after year after year. And these nests get quite large, as the nest is here at NCTC. And so mating happens through the fall and winter. Then they generally lay eggs in mid-February. A little bit late this year. It was towards the end of February. 27th was our first egg this year. But here in the wintertime, you can see on the bird on the right's got its feathers fluffed up to give it extra warmth, extra insulation. But once the eggs are laid, they stay on the nest pretty much all the time. Now, one exception for this year, the first egg that was laid might not be viable. It might not have been fertilized. We don't know. Can't say for sure until they all hatch. But the night of February 29th, it was quite cold, down to 16 degrees, and they weren't setting on that egg. Either the eagles realized that egg was not viable. They might have known that, sensed that, or they were worried about other eagles in the territory and they were out chasing them. At that time, the new male might not have understood he was supposed to stay on the nest. That's all conjecture on our part. We're just totally speculating here. At any rate, we know that that one egg wasn't incubated on that cold night, so it might not hatch. We wouldn't be surprised if only 2 of these eggs hatch. At any rate, once those eggs are there, and like you see them doing now, they're going to stay on those eggs night and day with brief interludes where they trade places. And if it's raining like it is here in the photo, they'll spread their wings out and make a tenting or a umbrella to keep those eggs warm. They'll turn them, like I mentioned, every hour. When they get tired, they'll put their head back and chortle to bring the other, that's a sign to the other bird to come in and change. When they do change, look for them to ball their talons up to protect the eggs. And after about 35, 38 days, this is what we like to see. There's a little hatch right there on the right, the little down-covered eaglet, few hours old here, but already strong enough to stand up on its own. And not long after they hatch, just a few hours later, they're going to get fed little tiny pieces of food. The adults will, fish is their favorite food when they're feeding the young ones. They'll pull off a tiny little piece. As the eaglets get bigger, they can get bigger and bigger chunks of food. But when they're small like this, tiny little pieces so they don't choke. Now, it's amazing how fast they do grow. And this one's about a week old, maybe 10 days here. It's already the size of a pigeon. It's unbelievable how fast they grow. And you can see the down coat start to get a little bit grayer in color here. Now it's starting to sit up. Its beak is getting bigger. They sleep a lot. They eat a lot. And look at the crop. The crop is an enlarged area of the esophagus on the neck. You see how there's that sort of a bump or a round part on the eagle's neck? It's sleeping here. Well, it's full. It's so full it just fell over and went to sleep to digest the food. So the crop, sometimes you'll see the young eaglets put their head up in the air and kind of look like they're yawning. Well, that forces the crop, food in the crop down into their stomach. You'll think they're yawning when they do that. But the crop holds the food until they can have room in their stomach to digest it. So they can eat a lot all at once. Again, this is part of their ritual. They might bring a stick in at any time. Fish is what they bring in a lot when these young ones grow because they eat a lot of fish. Here you can see a nice large sucker that was brought in from the Potomac River. And you can see the black feathers starting on this young bird. Those are called pin feathers, and they have a blood supply in them. Pin feathers or blood feathers. And look how fast the talons grow. This little guy, this is about mid-April. So this one's got big talons and a big beak. They grow faster than the rest of the part of their body. And when they're this age, they're kind of clown-like. They stumble around. They're a little bit clumsy. It's kind of comical to watch them. Here you can see the pin feathers coming in quite a lot, and their wings are starting to grow here. The wings don't really grow until the rest of the body is starting to develop. But like I said, the talons in the beaks grow fast and grow first. Wings later on. Here the pin feathers are coming in, and now by about mid-May, they're pretty well covered in their adult feathers, and these feathers are going to protect them from wind and rain. Up until they get these feathers, they need to be protected by the adult birds, protected from sun, protected from wind and rain, because the down, even though the down feathers that they have when they're first hatched gives them insulation, it doesn't give them any wind or rain or protection. So we'll stop right here and look for some more questions. And if you want to bring up any that we might have on YouTube or in the teleprompter, let me look into the chat room right here and see what we might have. One minute here while I get my slide pulled up. Okay, I'm having a little trouble seeing the chat room. I'll see what's on the teleprompter here. If you scroll down a little bit, Rob, let me answer this question first. Another question from Julia. She'd asked earlier, under what federal or state statutes are individuals not permitted to assist when eagle or eaglets are in obvious distress? Well, that's a kind of a complicated question, but I'll give some simple answers for it. All of the states, West Virginia here, for example, the state DNR is responsible for the animals in their state. Bald and golden eagles are protected since 1940 under the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. And they were under the Endangered Species Act for 30 years as well now, no longer under the Endangered Species Act because they're coming back. There are no, and I'm not an expert on all the legalities. I'll tell you that we have a division of migratory birds at our headquarters. Those folks are the experts. They just had a week of training on bald eagle and golden eagle regulations. So I don't want to speak for them, but as far as I know, there aren't specific statutes. It's more a matter of what's reasonable to do, whether it's a state agency, a federal agency, an NGO. For example, down in Tennessee last year, those of you that saw it, two eaglets got tangled up, unfortunately, in a bunch of fishing line. Fishing line's very dangerous for birds, eagles, just birds and wildlife in general. So fortunately, there was a climber able to get up into the nest and rescue the eaglets, but one of them did succumb to an injury, sadly. One did survive, but that rescue happened relatively quickly. There's been other incidents with rodenticides, poisons. It's especially, we've seen it in Florida, where a rat might be brought into the nest as a food source, but the rat was picked up. It had poison in its bloodstream. Other examples, lead poisoning, shots, ammos. There's all kinds of dangers out there, some human-caused and some animal-caused. But to make without getting into all these rules and regulations, I'll simply say that every nest is its own case. I don't want to get into generalizations, but we have to take each nest on its own. This nest, for example, is 90 feet up in a tree, and if something happened to one of those eaglets and we went up and tried to do something, there's a good chance we're going to scare those adults away. So we always have to weigh, are we doing more harm than good? And that's often what it comes down to in a nest is, are we going to do more harm than good? Nobody wants to see an eaglet die, but losing one eaglet would be better than losing 3 eaglets if the adults were to abandon a nest. So kind of a complicated question there, but I guess it's the best thing to say is every incident would have to be looked at on its own merits, and we never want to do more harm than good for any wildlife. So we had a question on social media about how bright the light looks at night and if it's okay for the eagles. That is an infrared light, and it is pretty bright, yeah, but eagles and humans don't see it. If you were here at NCTC and went out and looked at that tree, you would not see a light. Only the camera senses that light. The camera senses that light. Humans and birds, other animals, do not see infrared light. You might have heard it called night vision. The military uses night vision goggles to enable them to see at night. That's infrared light. It's not in the visible light spectrum that we can see. So I just missed that last question. Oh, I think it was, are 3 eggs uncommon? No, we've had 5 different years, actually 6 now at NCTC, where we've had 3 eggs laid. Last year in Pennsylvania, there were 4 eggs laid. 4 is very uncommon. 3 is not so uncommon, but only out of those 6 years, out of those 5 years, only 2 of those have had 3 eggs hatch and 3 eggs fledge. So it's pretty tough to have 3 eggs successfully reared until they fledge. So next question from Deb. Are there any other bald eagle nests nearby? There is one not too far from here, Deb, but they're not going. I'm not sure there's any eagles on it. There was a nest built. It's not far from where I live. If you're going down the river, it's a good 6 miles because there's a big bend in the river here. But so far as we know, that is the closest one. And as far as we know, those eagles, they're not going back and forth at all. None on the other side of the river. I've been down the river many, many times, and we have not seen other. Now, if you go farther downstream from Shepherdstown, yes, there's eagle nests down there, especially around Harper's Ferry. And the Shenandoah River comes into the Potomac at Harper's Ferry, and there are quite a few nests down there. But the closest one to this nest would be, like I mentioned, not too far from where I live. And I haven't seen any eagles on that this year, so there's no camera on that, so not sure what's going on with that nest. Okay, let me go in and finish up the last part of our slides here. And let's see where we are. A year in the life. Yeah, we'll finish talking about bald eagle behavior. I mentioned they're very territorial, very good protectors of the nests. That's what these eagles are doing here. Look, they're looking up in the air. They see another eagle going over the nest. They're going to squawk and make all kind of racket. And if that doesn't scare off the other bird, then one of them's going to take off and chase that other bird away, whether it's a hawk, an owl, another eagle, vulture, whatever it might be. They're very good protectors of their nests. And when we get about into mid-May, we often see this. We've got a young bird here. He still can't fly. He's pretty good size. He's going to do a lot of wing exercising, jumping up and down, especially on a windy day, flapping their wings, getting the feel of the wind under the wings. You can see how big those talons are. Almost a full-sized eagle here, but they're not going to get a white head or white tail feathers until they're 5 years of age. You can see there's a good bit of white under their wings, and they do change colors, feather colors or plumage colors. I'll show you a slide of that in a little bit. But there's the outstretched wings, getting the feel, wind surfing we call it, getting the feel. When they get brave enough, they get up on top the lookout post. This would be maybe towards the end of May or early June. Generally, they fledge or leave the nest in mid-June. If it's a rainy day, they hang their wings out to dry, so to speak, spread their wings out, let the wind and the sun dry them off. There you can see the pin feathers or the flight feathers. We'll be seeing a lot of this. If you're an active viewer of the nest, you'll see this. Here, this is the young one on the left is a female. Look how big she is compared to the male. This happens to be Smitty. This is a shot from 2019. That's Smitty on the right. And the young ones learn to be very aggressive with their food, even though it was one of their adult parents that brought the food in. They're going to grab it. They're going to hunch over it and mantle it, we call, spreading themselves out over the food to grab it. That's a survival technique. They have to be aggressive with food because when they go out on the wild, they need to be aggressive. If one bird gets some food, another bird's going to kind of try to come along and take it away. So they need to protect food when they get it. Here's what we like to see about mid-June. The fledge has happened. About 9 o'clock on that photo is the young bird. It's flown out of the nest and landed on a limb. The adults are in the nest. You can see the white-headed adult bird up about 11 o'clock, and then another white-headed adult about 3 o'clock in that photo. So once they fledge, they do come back to the nest for a couple of months. You know, in July and August, we might see the young ones along. They associate the nest with food, but by the end of the summer, they're going to be off on their own. And here's how their feather plumage changes over time. There's a 6-month-old eaglet on the upper left, all dark brown or almost black. At a 1.5 years old, they almost look like a golden eagle. They've got that coloration. Kind of hard to tell them apart. A golden eagle, though, has feathers on its lower legs. A bald eagle does not. Its talons are bare, nice golden yellow color. Not only do their feathers change, but their eye color and their beak color changes. Look at that one that's a half-year-old. Dark eyes, dark beak. Look what happens when it's 4.5 to 5 years old. That beautiful golden eye and a golden beak color. When they get to be about 3.5 years old, we sometimes call them a dirty bird. They look like they stuck their head in the mud because their feathers, the white feathers are coming in, but they still have dark feathers. So that's what our new guy here has, Scout. He's got just a little bit of his dark feathers left. So we can say, fortunately, that bald eagles, the populations are coming back, a true conservation success story. Partners in state, federal, non-governmental organizations. Our rivers have been cleaned up. We've had laws passed to protect eagles. They're coming back in a big way. We've got the ban on DDT and the Clean Water Act in 1972. The Endangered Species Act did a lot to help these birds come back. Reintroductions, I mentioned, from Canada, Alaska. Protections on refuges. So bald eagles are doing very well now. We can help them out by learning about them like we're doing now, picking up litter, especially fishing line and tackle. If you're out in the outdoors, please help us out there by picking up litter. Reduce, reuse, recycle, save energy. That always helps not only us humans save money, but it helps wildlife. Limit rodenticides, other poisons in the environment. Bad for all animals. Eagles and other birds of prey hunt them. And hunters using non-lead ammo because bald eagles and other raptors can get lead poisoning off of that. So with that, I will leave it up. There's my email address, randy_robinson@fws.gov. If you'd like to send me any questions or thoughts, be happy to do that on email. I'm going to get back to a few more questions here before we wrap up today. We're getting a little bit into our time here. Michelle is saying, I always thought the curve of the beak was the difference of the male and female. I didn't think it was their size. Thanks. Yeah, that's a little bit hard to tell, Michelle. The curve of the beak, when we had our male and female last year, her beak was a little bit different. Very subtle, though, very hard to tell. This year, if you see the two of them together, the female's head and neck are just bigger overall than the male. His neck is kind of longer, skinnier, but just size-wise in general, and that's true with other birds of prey as well. The female's usually bigger. The reason being, she's got more body heat. She's going to be the one that's incubating, especially it's very cold at night, any kind of cold weather. She's going to be on the eggs. More mass means more body heat. She's better at keeping the eggs warm than the male would be. He's a little smaller, he's a little more agile, he's a little bit better at catching fish, and so 80% of the time he's going to be fishing, bringing fish back, but both of them can catch fish. Both of them can set on and incubate the eggs. It's just one is a little bit better than the other body size-wise. Do we have other questions there in the chat room, Rob? I'm sorry, I can't see live stream here. My iPad won't bring it up. Scroll back just a little bit. No other questions. Okay, very good. Well, with that then, we'll start to wrap it up here. I do want to say, make sure you tune in on Friday, March 22nd. That'll be our next live from the Eagle's Nest program. Our senior producer here, Brett Billings, will be your host. And Brett will have our guest biologist from the West Virginia DNR talking about bald eagle populations around the state. He's an ornithologist, very knowledgeable on all kinds of birds throughout West Virginia. So that'll be March 22nd. And if you are within the area here, the Eastern Panhandle, Shepherdstown area, I should say, NCTC, the National Conservation Training Center, is going to have an open house, and that's going to be on May 11th. That's Saturday, May 11th, the day before Mother's Day. And the open house will run from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And so we welcome our friends and neighbors from the surrounding area. If you're in Winchester, Virginia, Frederick, Maryland, those towns are 30 miles away, cities are 30 miles away. But if you're going to be in the area, stop by. It's free. It's open to the public. Again, that's open house at NCTC May 11th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So with that, we will wrap it up here. Looking at our live shot of our nest at 1:50 p.m. That would be the female on the nest right there doing her duty, incubating those eggs. And so I'll sign off. Randy Robinson here saying so long from the National Conservation Training Center. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.